90% of consumers read online reviews before visiting a business. What do people see when they look you up online? We give you the tools you need to take control of your reputation. Send surveys to your customers via text message with Testimonial Collector. Get 5-star reviews on all the major platforms like Google, Yelp, and more. Track what people are saying about your business with Reputation Manager. Respond to comments and turn negative reviews into happy customers. See what your competitors' customers are saying about them with Competition Tracker. Learn great marketing tactics and what it takes to stay on top. A bigger social presence means more connections. Automatically generate and schedule engaging social media posts with Social 365. Build trust, boost sales, and grow your business.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another day in the life of the Entrepreneur Life Show. And I am your host, Rose, from McDonald Bookkeeping. And do I have an amazing guest for you today? You know what? I always bring the best guest. Do I not always say that, though? Because I get to pick them. And I also get to listen to people who might say, hey, can you get this kind of guest on your show? So I work so hard. And I have never had this type of guest on my show. I had actually a few people wanted me to bring more fashion and stuff. And then Mother's Day came around and people are like, oh my gosh, you need to bring some people, who can really help us with our style, stuff like that. So let me tell you, I was searching for a while and yes, I found someone. So for those, as you know, that means I listen to you. Okay, my listeners and my viewers. So let's first start off with saying thank you to our sponsor, Marketing Out the Box Media. Sean Maddox has been so amazing, so awesome. Marketing Out the Box with Sean Maddox. So he really helps you get your brand out there, just everything you need for your business, maybe even personal. You just kind of want to get out there and you have a personal brand. Of course, if you are watching on YouTube, make sure you jump into the super chat. And if you are watching on Facebook or Instagram, thanks for watching live. I hope you are a subscriber. Make sure you subscribe, become a member, get some member perks. If you want to comment, jump in on the comment in either the Facebook super chat or on Instagram on Facebook. And then we can include those comments. If you have something that you want to say, maybe say hello to our guest. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube page. But always be sure to check out the website because every guest that we have on the show, you can watch on the replay and make sure you connect with them. So maybe you've missed some shows and you're like, just go to the website. They are all there, entrepreneurlifeshow.com. So let me get rushed by this while we're streaming. So today I have Victoria Wieck on the show. And let me tell you, this is so exciting. Because I only really got, inspired on and what emotionally fashion and jewelry could mean to you. I used to think, oh, it's just jewelry. But until I actually got my first, my one, wedding ring, I used to look through magazines and like, yeah, I want this one. I want that. If there was a necklace because it was just pretty. And then I would get to the store, or to the mall. And then it didn't appeal to me. But then I would walk by something and all of a sudden this one just shouted out to me. So I totally got what she was saying on what inspires her and how she designs her jewelry because it's actually emotional. And when I was reading her story and I'm just like, oh my gosh, she is so right because I used to look through magazines and say, I want this. And I never even got any of the stuff that I would look in magazines to say I was going to get. And then I'd walk by a piece and let me tell you, and then it's like this connection, like you lose your breath, like, that's for you, right? So anyway, so Victoria Wieck, she is a renowned jewelry designer. If you don't know her, if you do know her, you've seen her stuff everywhere. She immigrated from, Korea to here in America. She has such an inspiring story. I'm not going to tell you because it's such a wonderful story. So I am going to bring her on board, and we're going to get her on the show because let me tell you, she's so amazing. So let me bring her on the show and we can all welcome her. Hello, Miss Victoria.
Hi, Rose. First of all, congratulations to your show. And I want to shine a light on people like you who show up every single day. Every day you show up and give your best and you let us guests shine. And that takes a lot of work. And I know that firsthand. So I want to shine up to you too.
Thank you so much. Let me tell you why I was so excited to have you on the show is because I do my research. I saw some of your interviews. I really got to learn about you and your story. And I really love the story about your mother and your family and how you got here. And for those who may already know who you are or may not, I mean, if you could just share a little bit about that, because it really says and inspires how your pieces come about. Because if it really wasn't for that journey and that transition, you wouldn't be as amazing as you are, because it really comes from someplace. If you don't mind kind of sharing that journey of your migrating.
Sure. Yeah, I think that, all of us, every single one of us women who, live our lives every day, we have a story. Our early lives kind of shape who we are later on down the road. And in that context, I'll tell you how we immigrated here and what happened after we got here. So back in South Korea, at the time I left, Korea was a very divided, torn country, right after the Korean Civil War, which still is dividing the country north and south, in half. So I was young to remember, anything that really happened other than Korea as a country. They preferred boys. Moms preferred boys. Culturally, boys are preferred. And my parents had 4 girls. So they decided that the girls' lives they would have more opportunities in America. So to them, America was the promised land. Even though, we weren't really suffering at that time, we weren't financially, or in a terrible situation. We were pretty well off at that time. We came to America, everything got frozen in both countries. My father had all his assets frozen. So we started our lives over again with $30. So with a family of 7, so there was 4 girls and a boy. I watched my mother, never complain. She showed up every day. She went from never working a single day in her life to doing manual labor, sewing factory. But she still lived her life with a lot of dignity, a lot of respect for people. And, she never really changed as a person. So later on, when I became a jewelry designer, I tried the first thing, I wanted to make sure that everything was timeless, because, you don't want throwaway jewelry. You want things that's going to last you forever. And secondly, every single thing, mother would only buy jewelry for a particular reason. So, every piece I do, I have to ask myself, okay, there are literally 5-6 million pieces of jewelry out there right now today in circulation.
Right.
Why should I design another piece? What makes this so special that people can't wait to buy it without selling? I mean, their eyes go to there and they just can't get it out of their system. They'd rather have that than food. I mean, this is the jewelry that you have to design. I mean, that competition was pretty tough even back then. So that was my standard. And one thing my mother said, when we didn't have any money, and there were, years when she didn't buy any clothes. I mean, she would buy fabric to make like a pair of pants for me. And then when I was done with it, my sister got it because I'm the oldest. So she always said she refused to buy anything, no matter what she had or didn't have, unless it had high quality, because high quality always shows and poor quality always shows. So I think that's kind of how it shaped my jewelry design work. And as you know, Rose, in this world now that we live in, and globally, it's not just America. I think people judge you by how you look, and there was just all this instant gratification, instant judgment, instant information formation, and we act instantly. So people like me who we are authentic people who have feelings, it takes a little while to kind of get used, kind of carve out your niche to sort of connect with, millions of women who share that view with you. But once you do it, it's an amazing journey. I've sold over 10 to 15 million pieces of jewelry in my lifetime, which is, I find that very rewarding, because that meant that I have touched the lives of that many women, and that gives me joy.
So I know that you're designing your own pieces, which says a lot, meaning you don't send it someplace and say, hey, this is what I'm looking for. You actually do like the sketch work, the coloring, everything.
Right.
And so, I mean, that takes a lot. It takes a lot of creativity.
Yes and no. I think that for me, jewelry designing is almost as easy as breathing. Like, it's not something I have to think about. I know it's kind of funny, but I look outside the window, and so when I first came to America, I didn't speak any English. So I used to, when teachers would talk to me, there was no English as second class, as a second language classes. So what happens is, like, whenever I started to try to say something, I want to go to the bathroom, or, I want my lunchbox or whatever, they didn't understand me. I couldn't talk. So I used to draw it out. So I'm pretty good at Pictionary now. But eventually later on, as I got older, and I still didn't have any friends because I had way too many responsibilities at home. And you know what it's like to be an immigrant family with, like, the oldest child has everything. So I had very few friends. I wasn't confident in myself. So in those years, I used to draw and paint my feelings. So I can go out, if you can look at a painting and you go, oh my God, she did this at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, or she did this at 6 o'clock in the morning. Because it could be the same gray skies, but one would be kind of warmer and one would be kind of cooler. So I used to draw and paint to express my feelings or my mood, or kind of almost like therapy. So when I decided to design jewelry, that kind of ease about feeling, when I'm feeling joyful, or I'm feeling very hopeful. Like lately I've been doing a lot of work with like butterflies and dragonflies, because they always signify to me a new birth. The idea that a caterpillar thought that its world is completely dead and it just ended, and it's just so much pain to get out of this little shell, but when it goes through all of that, it becomes a butterfly, right? So when you're thinking about these things, you don't end up with the same butterfly. You end up with a butterfly that went through hell and back, right? So he's not in full flight. He's a little bit more demure. So I think that, I connect with people on an emotional level, and I love that.
So do you recall the first piece that you started with? And, what inspired you by that first piece and led you down to create all these other magnificent pieces?
The very first pieces I ever created was probably something for myself, because when we lived back home in Korea, we were, in those days, they didn't have a mechanized world. So you got everything kind of custom made pieces. I love critters like, dragonflies, butterflies, ladybugs. But later on, my first piece I designed as a professional jeweler for commercial purpose was a tennis bracelet and then a bangle. So I started my whole company with 8 pieces. So you'll find that for those entrepreneurs who, you wonder, like, you're probably sitting there right now, how do you make any samples? How do you get a company started with no money? Okay. I'm just going to tell you that when you have no money, you actually become much more creative when it comes to how you gain your customers. So way back when, I didn't have any money. So if you had some money right now, if you want to start a jewelry company, even if you can sketch, you sketch it, then you go and get it manufactured. You need somebody to make your prototype. Then you kind of revise them and tweak them, because they almost never come out perfectly the first time. Or you might want to look at options. You might want to look at, different stones or different size, whatever. So you go through several renditions of this. So by the time you've done all of this, you've already spent a couple $1,000 just doing that before you got any feedback.
Right.
Well, I didn't have those options. I didn't have $200. So what I did was I drew them, sketched them, and I had a sketchbook, and I almost had a lookbook kind of, and I made sure that they looked really great. And I went to all my local department stores. I went to Neiman Marcus, Nordstrom's, Macy's, Rolex, all these stores. And I went to the jewelry counter, and I would ask the assistant buyer there, because assistant department manager, usually the managers were a little too busy. And so I would get the assistant manager, because they're the ones that actually see customers anyway. And I would ask them, like, if you had something like this, would you be able to sell it? And if you could, how many could you sell and what would they pay for it? So I got all my research done, and I would go to like 40 different stores. I mean, I drove, like there were about 8 or 9 Nordstrom stores within a 50-mile radius from me. So, there was about 3 of them like within 10, 15 miles. So I went to each one of them. And then I went to Orange County. I went to, out in Thousand Oaks. So I basically went all the way from middle of the state in California, all the way down to San Diego. And so by the time I did all that, by the time I actually made the samples and I spent any money, I got my perfect 8 pieces that was going to generate 80% of my business. I got my pricing. I got all, and besides, I built a great relationship with these people. They loved the fact that I was asking for, opinions. I mean, they really loved that. And I even got orders because they were then able to call their regular customers and say, you know what, I got this great designer, and she's like taking this thing on an exclusive basis, and you can pre-order her fall season, whatever. It's too exclusive to even put it on a catalog. So I actually got pre-orders before I even made my very first sample.
Oh my gosh, you were your own. I mean, you were basically everything, salesperson, everything.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
That's bold to be able to me, to be able to say, you know what, I'm just going to go knock on the door. Like
right, yeah.
Yes, and that's really inspiring.
Yeah, I didn't have any money. I mean, I had some time on my hands, and I wanted to see what they wanted. I mean, in jewelry apparel, you could make 200 samples, and not one of them may sell, or maybe they'll sell, but not enough to actually make it worthwhile. So getting that initial research was really critical. I think it was very crucial. Then once I got the samples made, what happened was they allowed me to do some trunk shows because now they had a skin in the game. They had skin in the game. They told us what was going to sell. So when I did a few pieces of trunk shows, they made sure that their best customers showed up and that there was a rapport. So I built my one of a kind back in Beverly Hills. The customers that really wanted the exclusive designs that nobody else could do, they trusted me with that. So I had a one of a kind business kind of built on the side. Then on the mass production side, when I got my prototype samples, I kind of knew that if I got an order for 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 pieces, I wasn't sure if they had the production capacity to do that. And those mass production samples has to be so perfect. So I went to Dallas instead of going to New York because I wanted to, if there was any kinks or mistakes being made in the whole supply chain, I didn't want that to be like to the end of my world, because if I went to New York and I kind of screwed up an order from South Fifth Avenue or something, that would be disastrous. So I knocked on all the small little wholesalers in Dallas, and sure enough, when the samples did come, I had problems with the clasps. The silver clasps were too loose, some were too thick. The bangles didn't fit perfectly, like the hinges weren't aligned right. So, I did have to go back and forth a few times. So by the time I got my first like a commercial large order, that was from Saks Fifth Avenue, New York, and I think it was like $56,000 for one bracelet in 14 karat gold. So I mean, that was almost too much for me. Like I didn't want to take that kind of a risk at that time, but and I had to go find money for the manufacturing part of this. But yeah, it was actually kind of really exciting time, like to start from nothing and, have $500, $800 or whatever the sales were coming in. And then the $56,000, I was like, oh my God, what do I do with it? Is this like for real?
How did you end up connecting with like these home shopping networks? Because you were like with HSN, you were basically
19 years straight. Yeah.
Yeah. You were just fixture. You know what I mean? You were there.
Yeah. So I was, in the Neiman Marcus catalog, which was very prominent at that time. Their catalogs were sort of like what everybody waited for Christmas time. That was before Victoria's Secrets, but they had. I was in Neiman Marcus and Harrods London, all these places with my exclusive collection. So HSN called me, Home Shopping called me for several years. And at that time, I felt that my designs weren't going to really sell all that well because it was never designed for like a real mass consumption and mass production. And I also really have to kind of think about, okay, well, I understand the Neiman Marcus customers really well because I've done that for a long time. I've met with them one-on-one, a lot of them. But being on TV, hooked up to 80, 90 million homes at the time, they're now hooked up to like 180 million homes. But at that time, the process seemed so impersonal, before I went on. And, but, after several years of talking to each other, eventually I did have to take a chance, because by the time I had to make a decision, it was like my kids were getting older, they were just toddlers. And I felt like, when my parents first came to America, they involuntarily kind of abandoned their children. They went to work at least 2 jobs each for several years as soon as we arrived here. So they worked Monday through Sunday from about 6:30 a.m. to almost midnight. So I rarely saw them. And it was just, my younger sisters, I don't think they really knew the difference. But for me, I had that real abandonment issues. So I worked through all that. And then by the time I got to HSN, I thought about, what if I could actually make this work? I would only be going from LA to Tampa once a month, or a couple of times a month, rather than going to all over the world. Because I am leaving my children with my nanny, with my mom, with other people other than myself. And I didn't want to do that anymore. So I kind of made a commitment to making that HSN thing work. And at the time, HSN wasn't ready for my kind of brand, and I wasn't ready for the real mass production, on the production side as well as the design side. So it was a lot of learning on both parties, but it was a really great journey and a relationship. I met millions of women through TV. Also, just amazing people to work with inside the company as well. I mean, it's hard. Trust me, it is. Like there's nothing harder than that. Because you got to be so on, and you can never unsay something you've said because it's live, and yet you got to be engaging and happy, and it's just and I'm a very private person. I don't like when I'm off of TV, I'm in yoga pants and a t-shirt. Like I'm not naturally a singer and a dancer or an entertainer, so I had to just learn to talk and just go with the flow. So after 19 years, I think I kind of got that part down by now.
Do you, the jewelry industry, just the fashion industry alone is extremely competitive.
Oh yeah.
And so I know that, that you kind of collaborate with Swarovski, and let me tell you, I love Swarovski Crystal. They have a great store here in Vegas. I mean, and so I didn't really understand. I thought jewelry was just jewelry growing up until, I actually became an adult. And actually, it's kind of like your character. It tells a story.
Yes.
Every piece it's for you. It's made for you. And of course, I didn't understand that until later in years. So of course, when my daughter, she's 30 now, but I remember when you'd say tennis bracelet, I didn't get my first house in my 40s. But when my daughter turned 25, I was like, I'm getting my daughter a tennis bracelet.
Right.
And I'm going to get her an everyday diamond earring, because you have your tennis bracelet, everyday diamond earrings, an everyday diamond ring. People are like, what are you talking about? I started to learn that every, the pieces that when I started really taking interest, and I could look at a whole bunch of jewelry in a case. And I remember when I was looking for my engagement ring and wedding ring, I looked in magazines, as I said, I was like, yep, that's what I want. And then I would get to the store.
Right.
And it wasn't at all.
Yeah.
Something else. And you would just emotionally have to. So when you're talking about having that emotional connection, how can you virtually, you don't even know who we are.
Right. I think, first of all, I've been in this business for a really long time, and I have to tell you one thing. You choose your wedding ring very differently than anything else you do in life, okay? Because, and I've dealt with, I can't even count how many brides, celebrities, non-celebrities, everybody else. They will tell you, you know what? I am a little bit more edgier. I don't like the basic ones. I don't like this. I don't like that. They'll tell you all this, but when they choose it, they don't. You know why? Because it's the only thing you own in your life. It's the only thing that you're going to choose in your life, that you're going to sit there and go, you know what? I want this. I'm going to be, first of all, I'm going to wear this every day, hopefully, until I die. And secondly, when I'm done with it, will my daughter like that? And will her daughter like that?
Yeah.
So what happens is you're thinking so far out in the future. It's the only thing that you own that you can do that with. You can't do that with your T-shirt. You can't do that with your shoes. I mean, you do the jewelry tells you the story of your life.
Yeah.
Because jewelry is bought to celebrate milestones. It's bought to celebrate emotional events in your life. Birthdays, anniversaries, your promotions, graduations, bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah. All of these things are celebrated with some piece of jewelry in it. So what happens is that if your wedding ring was like a classic round, yellow gold, and then you get your anniversary band, that piece that you chose is already kind of baking in the other decisions you're making, right?
Yeah.
So as a designer, you kind of have to understand the psychology. It's funny, I have to tell you a story. This is really funny. I had a kind of a medium-sized celebrity who came to me, and he wanted to surprise his bride. And I said, you know what? I just don't want the responsibility of you surprising her, because she thinks she's going to be really this sleek, edgy, modern person, but I know she's not going to like. She's going to regret her purchase about a year from now. Right. And I don't want that responsibility. So I gave him phone numbers of all my competitors because I don't want that to ruin my relationship with them. But he kind of insisted that no. So he wanted me to do it. So I said, I'll tell you what. Give me a picture of you and your, fiance with just you hanging out, just a picture of you two hanging out, casually dressed, and then picture of you two going to an event, like a nice event. And give me shoes, all the shoes that she owns. So I could just take some snapshots, and then give me some shoes that she always wears because they're usually up there. As you know, women own like just gobs and gobs and gobs of pairs of shoes, but we only kind of function in about 10 pairs of shoes.
Right.
So he did this, and he was telling me that the girl, his wife, I'm not going to mention her name because her and her sister had gone shopping for her wedding ring. And this is what she wants. So he kept giving me pictures of it. And I said, no, it's not her. And so I basically designed the piece, and I said, this is her. And he's like, are you sure? And I said, yeah, it's the only one I'm going to do for her because that's the only one that's right for her. Because when I looked at her shoes, they were all like black, brown, cream, mostly black and brown. And I said to him, she's basic, but when I look at the hardware, she has a little bit of platforms, and she actually values a little comfort. And she's a classic girl with a little unique twist. She's not a modern, edgy girl with a little classic twist. It's not her. So what happened was I designed this thing for her. And he proposed on Christmas Eve, and nobody knew this was coming. He had been doing this for a couple of years. Nobody knew this was coming, and they had a photographer. She was crying. Her mother was crying. Everybody was crying. It was like, you knew me better than I knew myself, because this is me in a ring. And I think that in order for you to be successful as a jewelry designer, you have to be that emotionally connected to your customer. Although if you just bring something pretty, it's never gonna, they might buy something, but that's the piece that's gonna be sitting in the jewelry box that never gets worn, because they're not attached to the piece. They got it on sale. They don't even know why they bought it. You don't want I always want my jewelry to be the one that they wear all the time, the one that they think about. And so that's how I process my job. And it's really amazing because I get to learn so much about people, and I like it. It doesn't feel like it's work,
When I, because you say that, I remember when I was choosing my wedding ring, and I'm an introvert, or at least I thought I was. And I also said, I am not going to spend thousands of dollars on a ring. Like I am not going to spend thousands of dollars on a wedding. And so I choose all these rings, staying within like a $5,000 budget. And I thought, okay, that's reasonable, 5,000 and under. And so, but when I got to see them, I didn't care. And I saw them on TV, and I kept saying, that's it. That's the ring. Ordered them. Look, I was looking at all these different magazines. And so when I finally go out, I called the lady where we had always bought jewelry. And I said, yeah, I know what I want. And she goes, oh, text me a picture of the ring. And I'm like, okay. And I text her a picture. And then she tells me to come down, and I hated it. And so then she says, hold on a second. And she says, I want to show you something. I'm not a gaudy person. I don't care for lots of diamonds. Simple. Totally wrong. I saw this ring and it had diamonds everywhere.
Right.
And but it was just what was laid out. It's so funny. I remember when I said when I finally connect, I said I understand what they mean. It's an emotional connection. I thought I was having a like heat flashes, and I couldn't breathe.
No.
And it was nothing like anything I picked. And this lady has told us all of our jewelry. When I get a watch, she said, oh, I got the bracelet to match. She'd call us, oh, I got the earrings that came in that match. And so she's like, wow, this is totally not you.
Right,
so
right. Yeah.
Understanding that. And she was like, something just told me to show that to you. So I understand what you're saying. And I thought about that whole thing about passing that to my daughter. And if I ever got robbed or anything, the only thing I'd probably save is my ring.
Right, right. And I think that this is why it's to me, this is such an honor, when people will trust me with their wedding ring. That is a huge honor because it's such a long process. Usually most brides, when people come to me, my daughter and I have a bridal ring business, and the worst grade we'll give you is like GVS2 is our lowest grade. Everything is above that. So we do high-end premium pieces that are all custom designed. We tell, when they first call us, we tell them, okay, go shop at the mall, go to Tiffany's, Zales, all these places, go shop and find your favorite thing. Because they'll find me a new favorite thing every day for about a week. And then they'll find me a new favorite thing like every week for about the next 6 weeks. Then they do. Every bride does this. Then we get down to business. We say, okay, tell me about your relationship. And when the guy tells me, oh, she's so down to earth, and there's a funny side of her, and she's this and she's that, and I tell him, like, you know what? Why your relationship is so unique? You got an amazing woman here. Why should you settle for something that was made for 6 million people by mass production, right? You should have something that epitomizes your relationship, who she is, and that you can tell a story. So I just did recently a ring for someone. My daughter and I collaborated with this. He said she's really plain. She's a nurse. She's an OR. No, she's not going to wear it on, in the operating room. And so she wants this, and she wants it. He went through this all the requirements. And I said, it's so plain. And she considers herself plain Jane, but I think you've got somebody who's really special here. Is there anything you want in here? Last chance. Anything you want in here that you want her to know? If something happened tomorrow morning, you want her to know about you so that I can incorporate this. And it doesn't have to be a design. It could be a color. It could be a, subtle something. So he said, I'm from New Orleans, and I've always liked this. I've always liked that. So we ended up getting a tiny, tiny little fleur-de-lis piece that just right underneath the stone. And you have to almost look, you can't really tell what that is until you get really, really close. And then you can see this and that's the only piece that's gold. Everything else is all platinum. Because that's where they met. She absolutely loved it. And so I look for these little, emotional connections, even when the customer says they want something really plain. So I kind of really love that. But I think that, for anybody who's trying to start a business, like even if it's not, jewelry business is kind of extreme in that regard, but every other business, even when you're, I have a friend who's a CPA, and she started like doing bookkeeping, like what do you call it? She does like bookkeeping on the outside. So, they got somebody on the inside, and she kind of does their taxes and stuff like that. But when you do any business, whether, something as black and white as bookkeeping and doing taxes, or doing jewelry, wedding gowns, you have to identify the customer's problem. What is her problem, right? You identify her, pain point. And then you have to kind of solve that problem, and then you have to kind of fall in love with that problem and the customers. A lot of times, like wedding ring customers, they're young, so they don't typically have a fortune. So their eyes are usually bigger than what their budget is. They're usually sticker shocked. Oh my God, that's $25,000. I'm like, I better go check my taste level again. And they lower it down to half, and they're still out of budget. And then they think, oh, because I can only afford $5,000, I'm just going to be settling for like a yellow, ugly looking stone, and I'm not going to be able to get something, especially designed. So I'm just going to settle for this, and I'm going to 5 years now, hopefully make enough money to go upgrade. Well, that's not a good thing. That's a problem. We want to be able to solve it for you.
Yeah.
You can get some beautiful pieces made at that price. So, but if you're doing like bookkeeping, for example, usually, so my girlfriend does this, usually they hire her because the small business owner is wearing 18 hats. They're their lawyers, the accountants, they're their, the chief janitor, chief shipping officer, chief whatever. They got a couple of kids at home and they're busy. And, she understands that, and she always remembers their birthday. She always remembers the birthday of their child, and she will send them like a little coupons for nails and things like that. Like she has them all on a schedule. It's those little things. It's like $50, but it keeps that client in there forever because you went out of your way to understand that that's the best $50 she ever spent, because who thinks about you getting your nails done, right? Like you're a small business owner. And you're sitting there, you're always going to get a call going, I'm sitting here getting my mani, and I decided to put the pedicure on too. And it's just such a great decision. I feel like $1 million. So, her customer retention rate is like 100%, and she doesn't advertise at all. Like her clients get her like 10 more new clients.
Right.
So, when you give, and when you're a generous person and you actually connect with at an emotional level with whoever you're doing business with, it just makes everything easier. It really does.
I agree. Because even when I thought that I didn't want to spend a lot of money, I remember when that was the ring, and then it came to like, oh, now I want a chocolate diamond. And now, I was like, but I remember looked at my better half and I was like, no, it's way too expensive, because it was like triple the price.
Right.
But because saw my reaction, it's like, whatever. And it was in the $20,000 range.
Right, they're all $25,000. Yeah.
That reaction was just like, that was it. That's all. Don't worry about it. And I was like, what? Because I'm the one that's the frugal one. So I get what you're saying. It's like, this is it. This is it. We're not coming back. This is it. So I get that. So it's a difficult job that you have to not know who we are.
Yeah.
But know what we want without knowing who we are is amazing. So I wanted to talk about actually your books, because you are now, an author, and I know you're going to actually be coming out and people get kind of the sneak peek. And I want to how you kind of transition and talk about the what you have going and when that's going to actually come out, because I think there's $1 million hobbies.
Yeah. So the $1 million hobbies, many people. So I've sold over 10 million pieces of jewelry, and I went from 0 to $500 million in sales, like with all by myself, which is kind of good, cool. So a lot of people have said, why aren't you writing a memoir, or, why aren't you writing a how-to? And I used to think, I don't really know that my journey was all that extraordinary or different. I mean, I compare, when you go through what I went through, and a lot of immigrants go through hell here, not because people in this country are mean, they come with no means, and, you're having to adjust to a whole new culture, language, food, all that. So it's pretty tough for immigrants to come here and adopt, embrace this new culture and sort of be at par. So, but even then, I used to think, well, compared to like people who went through slavery or the internment camps, whatever, like, I felt like my journey wasn't like something that was that difficult, compared to when you compared to other people that's gone through obstacles in history. So I didn't really want to do it. But when COVID hit, I decided I'm going to write a series of blogs about just giving tips on how do you go find customers? How do you find the courage to start a business when when you couldn't do it before COVID, and then now the world is even more uncertain? Like, what do you do? So I started writing it, and then I thought, what? I have so much to say. I've got like 18 chapters of it. So I put it together, and then I started a podcast, and I put it together. And then I've gotten some offers from bigger, some of the pretty big publishing houses to sort of up the ante and write a better book. So I'm right now in the revision phase of it. But now I'm not trying to say that I'm, a rich person or I've accomplished so much that I don't have anything else to accomplish. What I will say is this. My goal when I first landed in America was to be able to find my own little apartment, be able to rent it on my own without having my parents help me for it. Buying myself a used car. So having done $500 million in retail sales, my life right now is very good. I've more than accomplished my original goal and exceeded the revised goals several times over. So now my legacy, my new goal is help other people to achieve their dreams. And, I really want to show them how to do it because I've done it. I mean, like I told you about getting lookbooks and all that. I've done every single thing I've done it with no money. Rose, I've done it with no money. So I thought, how nice would it be if I could write a book and that book caused 1 million millionaires in this country, which I think is completely doable.
Yeah.
Because the stuff that I'm giving you is going to be gold. It's going to be gold. And then, I want to, and I'm going to say this another thing too, is like when we're on TV, we get judged on dollars per minute. So our sales, it's called a DPM, dollars per minute. And so you got to do so many $1,000 a minute. Otherwise you get taken off. I've been on there for 19 years. So if I just wanted to make money writing a book, even if I could write a, $1 million, whatever, million copy sold book, my time would be spent so much better designing another piece of jewelry and putting it on TV, right? Because it's easier. It's a sure shot. But I kind of wanted to write this book because I think there's beauty in, I feel like God put me in this place, everything that I've been through in my life. And by the way, my journey wasn't a smooth one either. I mean, I've made some real screw ups in my life as well. God put me in this place so that I could share that journey, that other people, younger people, me like your daughter or my daughter, they're lost. When you turn on TV, when you turn on the news, or maybe we have kids that are just hyper motivated and they're reading the business journals that do, everybody tells you, unless you got some special niche, or unless you got some special this, or unless you're like a social media guru, don't even bother doing it because you have no chance. Well, that's not true. It's not true. Social media is okay. It's not going to get your customers. You are going to get your customers, right? I built my business with no social media. To this day, I have a really tough time posting on Instagram to let people know I'm drinking coffee. I don't try. What's the point of this, right?
Right.
You want real, authentic relationships, and as long as you're willing to, and I'm not a perfect person. I mean, I have vulnerabilities, I have insecurities. As long as you're authentic and you share that, everybody else, nobody wants a perfect person. Everybody, if you're vulnerable, you're working hard, you're the underdog, you show up every day, make everybody happy, make everybody around you shine, they're going to be cheering for you by the millions. And I want to, this is all in my book, chapter by chapter, emotional side of this, as well as a real how-to with no money. Like, I'm not trying to sell you anything other than that. When you get the book, you will be able to start a business that day. I love that. It's called the $1 Million Hobbies, by the way. You can sign up for.
I saw that for the pre-release list, as well as this. What is Shattered Sky?
Okay, Shattered Sky is a science fiction. So I wrote that first. So after 20 years on TV, 20 years on TV is crazy. We have to do like 150 new designs every single month. So and about 65 of them have to sell. So when I give them 150, my buyer picks about 75. About 65 of them have to sell like millions of pieces. So the life is really, really hard and demanding, and it's just constant. You're up like just mega hours a day. So I just shut up and I wrote my science fiction, and it is about a girl living on an island, and a nuclear war kind of happens, and a lot of stuff happens. She loses her father, and then her sister gets kidnapped. So it's a real thriller science fiction. There's a lot of science that's not here yet that I've had to kind of create. I just love doing it, and I wrote the book, and I've got 2 or 3 publishers asking me to write a whole sequel to this. So I'm writing the sequel to that now. So there's a pre-release list of that as well. Then there's a sample chapter there, and you'll find that really interesting. And then I wrote the how-to, which I'm really passionate about because I think I can impact lives right right there, right now. And I'm still doing designing jewelry, and you're seeing my little dog Bella. I love dogs. So she's like my best friend. She always listens, and most people don't like to listen to me all the time. So yeah.
No, I think now, if I'm not mistaken, are you going to start doing courses?
I am. I'm going to be loading up free courses. Do you know the number one reason why small businesses go out of business? The number one reason they go out of business is because they're not visible. So if you have a fabulous boutique for fashion, clothes, or you got a fabulous restaurant off strip like in Vegas, and nobody knows who you are, nobody knows where you are, you're gonna have a tough time surviving that, right? So I have a seminar coming up on June 24th or something. I think it's June 24th. It's a completely free seminar. You have to buy a thing, and I'm doing this free just one time. And that is how to become relevant, how to elevate and amplify your personal brand so that you can get rewarded for that. So it's called the Wieck system. So you become relevant by being, sort of establishing your expert authority. Then you elevate your message, amplify your message, and then you get paid. So I have a system of doing that. And that's what I've used pretty much to, get to where I'm at. And so I've got a free seminar on June 24th. The brochure is not up here yet because it's actually through an organization called Power. And it's a free organization, by the way. You guys can join it. It's called Professional Organization of Women of Excellence. I mean, they've got in the cover, like they have a magazine, and the cover they've had people like Susan Lucci, Gloria Gaynor. She sang the song "I Will Survive."
Yeah.
She's got, just Jillian Michaels, you name it. Everybody who's anybody. Like this month, I think they've got Gloria De Laurentiis on. So it's with that organization, I'm putting on this seminar. And then once the seminar is over, it'll be on my website and people can access it for free because I don't feel like I should be charging people for that. So I'm adding lots of different little, even things like if you get free media, how do you conduct a media interview? Because a lot of people don't know that. So I'm going to be loading up those short videos very soon. So just come and visit. It's going to cost you nothing. Just a few clicks.
So are people actually able to attend, or do you have like an email list that if we wanted to sign up so we can get first notice when that becomes available?
Yeah, you know what? It will be limited. So go ahead and sign up. If you go to info@milliondollarhobbies.com or sign up for something, and then we'll send you an email list on that. Because the brochure, I think I just approved that this morning. Just before, that's the last thing I did before I came on this show. So, because I wanted to make sure that that the brochure gives you exactly what you're going to get. And it's going to be, like I said, it's going to be all free. It's going to be jam-packed with information. Basically what happened was the woman who owns the organization Power and I were kind of brainstorming about how can we help? Like in the middle of COVID, we were like, women are being just slammed with, we are cooking like never before. We're cooking breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and everything else. We're doing all the grocery shopping. We're taking care of our, elderly. I took care of my mother, my mother-in-law, like everybody else. So our businesses are just being hit because they tend to own smaller businesses that could be cut. So what can we do to help them? Now, how are we going to go face people in 2022 and say, what have we done as people who are successful to help other women?
Right.
So, I thought, if I could, I would teach. The first thing I would do is I would teach them how to get relevant, because that's the biggest problem. They don't have advertising budget. They don't want to learn all the new tricks on internet marketing, and they don't work, by the way. So how can I then have them build that authentic relationship with their customer? Number one, you gotta let people know you. Get to know you. They gotta get to know you. They have to trust you. They have to like you before they'll buy anything. I mean, even a sandwich. Those three things have to happen. But if you don't get the first chance to get to know you, how are you ever going to build a business? So I thought, if I can do this, and in 2022, by the time you have your gala event in 2022 with all the mega stars, and we can say, because I came to that webinar free, I am now a millionaire. If I can get 5 of those women there next year, that would be like my life's mission. And for the 5 that made it, it's great. But what about the 50 or 500 that did the multi 7 figures but didn't hit the million? You know what I mean? I was like, I want to do a kick-ass like webinar, and that's what I want to do. So that's actually coming up. And by the way, I'm breaking that news here because I just approved it.
Okay.
Like literally, I was approving it. If you remember, I was here like a minute late coming to the green room. So I had some construction people show up, had to deal with her. And then I had to like approve the brochure so they can populate it. So you guys are seeing it first.
So, I completely hear what you're saying, and, marketing and being out there, but if you're not, it's not going to get you paid if your customers don't know you. And from the people I've worked with the majority of my life, I have worked with the majority as far as my employers being of Asian descent, Chinese or Japanese. And I remember they had to get to know me as an individual before even hiring me.
Right. Right.
Even when they were doing business with, potential vendors and suppliers, we'd all eat lunch together. They would have dinner, meet their families. And this I remember for so many years. And then I noticed that, and this is not saying anything about Americans versus if you're from somewhere else. But what I'm saying, there was a big difference. And then when me working for, I guess it's say somewhat of an American, that it wasn't that. It was just like, okay, we connect, we're doing business, and that's it. So there was no transparency, there was no relationship.
Right.
And I remember we would eat together on lunch, and I'm just an employee. And I remember when people would come in and say, we're having someone come in, and they're having dinners together, and they're meeting all of us, and they're not even doing business yet.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in that, and I think that this is like it's the critical core thing that it's not in it's not in the webinar, but I'm going to give this to you now, is that a lot of small businesses don't understand the difference between building a business and making money, a profitable business and making money, versus building a brand. Okay, if you're going to build a business and you are just providing a service, you're selling a sandwich, or you're doing whatever, you're providing a freelance design work. Okay, that's great, but you are going to be very vulnerable, because the minute a competitor comes in with cheaper price, a minute competitor comes in with better product, a minute competitor is willing to work longer hours, you're going to be getting trapped a little bit at a time, right? But if you're a brand and you're the go-to destination, if you go to like let's say a million hotels out there, you get the Venetian, which is a brand, and you go, oh, I love those gondolas, and I love this or that. So when you spell out a name of a brand, like Ralph Lauren, for example, Ralph Lauren is sort of like this scrubbed down Americana, very polished, jeans and casual, dressed up, smart casual type of clothing. He wouldn't be doing pink ruffle suits no matter what happens, right? Because it's a brand. So what happens is when you're a brand, people trust you. You're the go-to person. So, in this little small Asian company, they were still basically operating as a brand, because what that means is, even though somebody's working for us, our employees and everybody, our storefront, everything that we do have to reflect our personality, how we do work. So we have to like our employees, because our customers have to like us and our employees. It's a very, they may not have realized that, but I think that's a part of their process, right? If we don't like our employee, how is our customer going to like our employee, right? So, I think that it's asking too much, right? If I can't stand Rose, why would I ask 500 people to fall in love with her? So it's like, if they said, God, I wish I could adopt Rose. I mean, she's so happy and courteous and smart and willing to do anything and always goes above and beyond. What want to have that representing you? So I think that may have been their attempt, but I do think that what you don't want to be as a small business person, whether you're an introvert or extrovert, you don't want to be the biggest secret in town. You want to be the one that everybody talks about. So, this idea that you want to be relevant because you want to sell, it doesn't have to be anything big. If you're selling sandwiches, hey, you could be a sandwich shop, but they say, there's a Subway, there's this, there's that. But if you really want that Italian sub sandwich, there's one place that does that one thing better than anybody else, right? So you become the expert in whatever that one thing is. Right. So be relevant, and that relevancy doesn't have to be the whole store. It doesn't have to be anything, it doesn't have to require any new inventions or a huge amount of money. But find out what you're going to be relevant with. Then you need to elevate that message, because if you look at look at the whole example of like Starbucks versus McDonald's, right? Mm-hmm. We all used to, everybody got coffee from McDonald's or wherever you're driving through in the morning. We got it for 39 cents. I mean, they might charge $1 now, but now Starbucks took the same coffee, they've elevated it and said, you can have the soy latte, you could have this, you could have that, you could have it with foam, without foam, you could have half shot. So now we're paying $5. And most of the Starbucks, we can't even drive through. You have to go park the stupid thing and stand in line for 30 minutes at a time to get that one coffee. So what they did is they elevated it, right? So be relevant, elevate it, and then amplify it. And I mean, obviously in a smaller version of that, but that's the only way you will survive. And I think that message hopefully will be, pretty well attended.
Wow, let me tell you, you just said some stuff that I've had some people on here for marketing that just blew that out the water. Literally what you said about really you really have to connect with the consumer. Your business can be making a lot of money, but and like a lot of businesses, they're making a lot of money, but they have to keep
right.
Their consumers, they're not loyal to them because it's like they're going to the next best thing.
Right. You want loyalty, because this is why I think that, earning your business and earning their trust, because then they will trust you with other things too. And, we all know, for example, like out there in Las Vegas, my favorite Mexican food is Lindo Mohican. I don't know if you know this place.
Yes, Lindo Mohican. Yes. Okay. I just went there the other day for the first time, and it's pretty damn good.
It is. Ever since I ever tried that place, I haven't gone to any other Mexican place ever. Same thing. There is a Stefano's, some kind of a Mediterranean grill. They make the killer shrimp kebabs. So if I ever wanted kebabs and I only want one thing, that's shrimp kebabs. I don't know if they do chicken or anything else. But so what happens is I'm sitting here talking to you about these places already. So you become an expert in one little thing. And you become a brand. That Lindo place, I think they've got several locations, by the way. So this is how they grow. So if you, and then he could, he's not even asked me, I don't even know the owner or anything like that. I had tried they had killer fish, by the way. So I was like, oh my God, I've never tried like Yucatan kind of food before, but it was really great. So he could come on and talk about when I went to their restaurant. There was a whole story about like this guy was I don't know if you ever read it or not, but read it next time you go in there. He was sent over here, and he was like living in a convent. The owner was living in a convent, and he used to follow the nurses around. And one day the nurse told him he could peek in when they were cooking food and stuff. So that's how he learned how to make food for monks and stuff in Mexico. So eventually he learned to. So it's always if you ever look at monk food, it's a very, very pure food. Yes. So you're like, oh my God, that makes complete sense, right? And that he could definitely set himself as the expert in that particular type of food, and then he can amplify and elevate it. So what I'm saying is here's the other thing. I have an MBA. If you read my bio, in fact, I got 2 of them. When you go to the MBA program, the better the school, the better they are at plugging you into a corporate system. The MBA graduates are the ones going to run the IBMs, run, Chase Manhattan. They're the ones that are running the senior vice president or whatever it is. So they want you to plug into a corporate system. And most of these people play with other people's money, stockholders' money. They don't play with their money. They don't even know how to, run a campaign with $5,000. They don't even know how to do it with $50,000. I mean, they don't even know how to do it with $500,000. They don't probably know how to do $5 million. But small business owners, we can't do that. So we have to be creative. And so whatever webinars I do, I differentiate between, I'm not ever going to come up and talk about marketing lingo and jargon because they don't have any meaning. For example, let me tell you something. Here's a great example. Every new, whenever you listen to the stockholders' earnings and all that, they're like, oh, our new customer generation is X, Y, Z, and, we're generating 10% new customers. They're talking about this all the time. Well, guess what? If you own a restaurant like this Lindo place, you own a restaurant and you go, oh my God, I could have 300 new customers, this month. Well, if they were brand new customers and they tried your restaurant for the first time, and there was a huge convention or something, but 200 of them didn't come back next month. Well, guess what? You may not have those 300 customers as your customers. 200 that didn't come back, maybe 100 of them are going to tell people why they're not ever going to come back. So they might actually prevent you from getting new customers. So, corporate environment that can count them as customers, you and I, we have to pay our bills. So we're like, well, why aren't they coming back? Maybe we better call them because, our hit rate is only a third. If we had 300 people and they never came back, I mean, we're asking for $20 lunch. Like, we're not even asking for $200. So why aren't they coming back? Right? So we then take action. The MBAs won't. They're going to put a report. I think that having someone like myself who has been through that, who has gone, because I run the corporate side as well as my own business, a very different thing. I think there's a lot of value in that, and I want to serve.
Wow. Let me tell you, you just threw out some education.
No.
Seriously, wow, I didn't even expect all of this part at all. So no wonder you're so successful.
Above and beyond.
So, thank you. We're coming to the end of the show. Let me tell you, you have so much knowledge and very transparent and very intriguing. So you're very engaging. You can see that you're very easy to connect with, as well as sincere about what you're saying.
I think you have to. As a small business owner, and I consider my business still small, maybe after I hit $1 billion, I'll say it's not that small. But I would say that as a small business owner, you are your best asset. You have to be your best advocate. You set the culture, you set the tone. And I'm a firm believer in giving first before asking. So that's why a lot of my stuff is free. I give my information, I share my knowledge, because why should anyone else come up with this? If I made a mistake and I paid a price for that, I always share that because it prevents somebody else from having to lose $10,000, $15,000 and many nights of sleep and maybe a year of time. So if I can collapse that person, maybe somebody else will pay me back with their mistake, that I can learn from. And I think that makes the world kind of really a beautiful place,
Well, thank you, everybody who has been listening, because, man, I know you have got to be getting something out of this show.
Let's hope so.
And I am going to go on your email list because I would love to get that notification. And for those of you who really want to get notified when the webinar and stuff and the courses come about, you need to go to the website. You can obviously go and watch this show. I showed the website, but I'm sure Miss Victoria will share it again, or us to get on that email list to make sure that we get notified when this all becomes into fruition. And of course, the pre-release of the book. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And until next Thursday, for our next show, thank you, everybody for coming back, who have all been so faithful. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Make sure you check out the replay. If you're listening on your favorite podcast, maybe you're not watching live and you're on iHeart or Spotify or something like that, you can watch the live interview, which is the best than listening. And until next time, you guys, Bye, everybody. We'll see you on the next show.
Bye.